this evening. How many we have here? We have 5, actually 6. No, make that 7. Total of 7 application reviews that need to be cleared as well tonight. So we are going to get started right now. So here we go. First thing we're going to do is cover some administrative business. Did everyone get a chance to look at the meeting minutes from January 17th, 2023?
Yes.
Any questions, any edits, any comments that need to be made? No? Okay, so I'd like to get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 17th, 2023. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So the next thing we're going to, yes, you'll abstain because you were not here. That's correct. Thank you. Next, we're going to look to get updates from the village board, Ulster County Planning Board, and anything from the Environmental Policy Board. Will?
Yeah, nothing going to report.
Okay. So with that in mind, we do have now, we're going to move on to the another piece of business here that's not on the list. If everyone gets a chance to look at the meetings that we have for 2023, we do have a difficulty on Monday, July 3rd, 2023. The office will be closed celebrating July 4th. That leaves only one meeting in July, which would be on the 18th. So please, everyone, if you would, I know it's far in advance, but take a look at your calendar, see if there is an opportunity to have a second meeting in July. We'd like to get that taken care of and closed before we have our first March meeting. So really next week, the next meeting, we'd like to get that closed out. So take a look, see what you got, because we would like to have 2 meetings in July.
Preference that the 3rd.
Well, the 3rd,
Okay.
yeah, the 3rd is the office going to be closed on the 3rd? Okay. If it is not going to be closed, then the 3rd would be the best, probably.
I think that the 4th is a holiday.
Mhm.
Having a meeting on Monday the 3rd before what would otherwise be a 4-day weekend. Put it this way, I'm not likely.
Okay.
The 5th would be my preference as well. Yeah.
All right. So do we need to make any sort of motion, Ashley, or can we just go ahead and pencil that in as the 5th? Okay. Okay, well, why don't we do this then? Why don't we get a motion to approve the 2023 meeting schedule with the change of the first meeting in July being moved to the 5th. Is it the 5th? The 5th of July.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So the motion has passed and is now going to be on July 5th. So the next thing we're going to move to are public comments. We do have one public comment that was received in regards to 123 Main Street. Autumn, do you have that?
I don't have it. I can send it.
I do not have that.
Yeah.
If you would read that, please.
The subject is property boarding 123 Main Street, concerned neighbor 27 Orchard Heights. My husband and I are writing. The quality of life issues are self-evident. Rural landlocked piece of land is surrounded by residences, each bedroom with an back up to this property. When we purchased our townhome, we were told that the reason we were paying village taxes. I can also say, I spoke with this woman yesterday. Know that there is no hotel at this property in front of the planning board, and he let her know that I would give her your.
Very good. Okay, so now we are going to move to next item, which is the application review for PB 2214. 115, 127 Main Street. The applicant is Main Street New Paltz LLC. Tonight, what we're going to do is review the draft resolution, including the specific conditions. And hopefully what we're going to try to do is to move to adopt this resolution. So does the board have any final questions on this application?
Oh, yeah, I took a look at that today. It looks like there's room on the sidewalk. I could imagine that being okay there.
On the yeah, I just got the Discovery Institute. The only one I have.
Oh, excuse me.
I have it here.
Sorry.
Do you have your hard copy there, Ruth?
No, we don't have.
We don't have
You don't have any hard copies?
Okay, here.
Okay, we can. We got it. We're on the printer. Just have to sign it.
Oh.
We got one copy. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this and like to get a we're going to read through this and then we're going to look for a motion to approve this. So this is a resolution of approval, site plan and special use for 115, 121 Main Street. It gives an application summary, identification of the property and identification of the plans and submittals. Then goes through the procedural history and the findings. We get to the resolution of approval. It has general conditions which are standard for almost all of our resolutions. And then we do have some very specific conditions, which starts by saying, therefore, the planning board of the Village of New York hereby resolves to issue the site plan and special use permit approval to the application of Main Street NP LLC, but only as specifically set forth on the plans as identified above or as subsequently revised in accordance with this resolution and as further conditioned as set forth below. And then it says the planning board chair is hereby authorized to sign such plans and documents evidencing this approval only in strict accordance with all of the items and conditions of this resolution of approval. Specific conditions. Prior to the signing of the plans, the applicant shall submit an updated proxy statement designated Medenbach and Eggers Engineering and Land Survey PC as having permission to obtain site plan and special use permit on its behalf. The outdoor cafe shall be closed to patrons at 11 p.m. in accordance with the village code. No outdoor cooking of food shall be permitted. operation and maintenance of the outdoor cafe use shall be in conformity with the applicable regulations of other chapters of the Village of New Paltz Municipal Code regarding health, noise, and licensing. So with that in mind, I'd like to get a motion to approve this resolution. And if I may please have our project coordinator, if you would take a voice vote. Second, I'm sorry, second, yes, thank you.
May I have a question, just to clarify something? So I know there was a discussion about the fact that if the space where the tables existed wasn't segregated from the public space, then there could be no alcohol served. That's inherent, is that because it's inherent in the law that it doesn't have to be mentioned as a specific condition? Good point. It refers to applicable laws, so it's a law. So I guess it doesn't have to be a specific condition.
Let's see what our attorney has to say. She certainly will.
If I have it right, it was a discussion that was specific to the idea that the SLA regulation would not allow service of alcohol in these spaces. So the owner agreed that that would just be something that would happen because it's the law. So I'm assuming we don't need it as a specific condition because it'd be breaking the law. It wouldn't be breaking the resolution.
It would be breaking the SLA regulations, which then enforcement wise, that would have to be done at the SLA and.
So doesn't have to do with that.
Okay. So that's an enforcement topic with the SLA. Thanks for the question. Thanks for the clarification. So we'll ask our project coordinator to do a voice vote. Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so the motion has passed. Okay. Okay, so the next item is application review for PB 2215, and it looks like the adjournment has been requested. So actually, how do we handle with the adjournment being requested by the next application, PB 2215? Okay, so we are now going to table PB 2215 until the following meeting. That brings us to the next application, which is PB 2008 6466 Plains Road Discovery Institute. This is an application to subdivide an existing 5.7 acre lot into 2 lots. So we do have a few things to discuss with you. One of them is, actually, we only have one to discuss with you. Normally, there are recreation fees that are associated with this. However, since there's no new residence proposed with the subdivision, all the residences are pre-existing. It is appropriate to find that the village has a need for public parkland and recreation areas, but the subdivision does not contribute to such a need as it is existing, and there's nothing that is being built on there. And those findings are set forth in the draft resolution. So you are exempt then from the recreation fees. So we want to review the draft resolution. But before we do that, any further questions for the applicant? Okay. So then what we're going to do is read this resolution, and then we're going to make a motion for approval of this resolution. And it's a resolution of conditional approval, preliminary and final subdivision for Discovery Institute Incorporated, application number PB 2008. Again, it starts off with an application summary, identification of the property, identification of the plans and submittals, and a procedural history. Then moves to the findings. And after the findings, we begin the resolution of approval. And there are, of course, general conditions, but there are a fair amount of specific conditions which we will now go through. Specific condition number 1, prior to the signing of the subdivision map, the map shall be revised as follows. And by the way, you've got a copy of it there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Change the title block from preliminary map to final map. And B, revise map note number 17 to read as follows. Lot 1 and Lot 2 are subject to an encroachment easement and maintenance agreement being filed in the Ulster County Clerk's office for the retaining wall, fence, and concrete patio that are partially located on each lot. Prior to execution of the sewage disposal system easement and maintenance agreement, such agreement shall be revised as revised as follows. Change the applicant's name to its true corporate name, Discovery Institute Incorporated, not the Discovery Institute Incorporated. And revise B, the paragraph first on page 1 to add the following language at the end of such paragraph with the blanks filled in after filing of the subdivision map. Quote, as shown on the final map of subdivision of lands of Discovery Institute Inc., last revised, and there's a date to be ended and recorded in the Ulster County Clerk's office on blank as the map number and then the map number to follow. Revise paragraph 3rd on page 2 to correct the typographical error in the last sentence. Change of the lot owners to of the lot owners, excuse me, to of the lot owners. Prior to execution of the encroachment easement and maintenance agreement, such agreement shall be revised to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney. The deeds related to the plot shall refer to the easement and private road maintenance agreements Da Vinci Way recorded, and it gives the recording information. The sewage disposal system easement and maintenance agreement being filed simultaneously with the deed, and the encroachment easement and maintenance agreement being filed simultaneously with the deed. A draft of the deed shall be submitted to the building department prior to the execution to confirm compliance with this condition. Number 5, simultaneous with the filing of the deeds related to the plat, the applicant shall file the sewage disposal system easement and maintenance agreement in a form as approved by the village attorney. Such instrument must be recorded in the Ulster County Clerk's office as a condition of this approval, and a copy of the recorded document with proof of such recording submitted to the building department. Number 6, simultaneous with the filing of the deeds related to the plat, the applicant shall file the encroachment easement and maintenance agreement in a form as approved by the planning board attorney. Such instrument must be recorded in the Ulster County Clerk's office as a condition of this approval, and a copy of the recorded document with proof of such recording submitted to the building department. Number 7, all conditions attached to the grant of area variances issued by the Village of New Paltz Zoning Board of Appeals and filed in the office of the clerk on January 11, 2023, are made a part of this approval, and this approval is subject to the same as if those conditions were set forth herein at length. In the event, number 8, any further development or subdivision of the lots is proposed in the future that involves creating new residential units and contributes to the village's need for public parkland and recreational facilities, such development will be reviewed under village code, and it gives the village code, and any required recreational land reservation or payment in lieu will be imposed at that time. So that summarizes the specific conditions that were laid out. So now, unless there are any further questions, we will ask for a motion to approve this resolution of conditional approval for Discovery Institute Incorporated, application number PB 2008.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
and then we're going to ask for our project coordinator to do a voice vote, please. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the motion is passed, and congratulations, you now have things ready to go. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
It's a long road, but we got there.
Yes, the 2 copies.
That's fine. Get that out there as well. Good night. So now moving on, we are at number 4, PB 2210 11 Water Street Trails LLC, application for site plan, special use permit approval to demolish an existing warehouse building and construct a 28-room hotel along the Water Street and in the Gateway G district. That's an unlisted action. We declared our intent to be lead agency at the 12/6 meeting, and lead agency notice was circulated on 12/13/22. So really, we've got some next steps here. We're going to listen to your presentation, but we do have some next steps after we get the applicant's presentation. We'll ask, in fact, Autumn, have you received any objections to the seeker lead agency notice? So we can approve a motion to assume lead agency status. Again, we'll do that after the presentation, discuss any additional consultants who review the project, such as the village engineer, architect, landscaping, traffic, et cetera, and look at motions to refer applications to the consultant. And then there are some issues that are below here, and we're going to have our attorney lead us through those. And then we're going to discuss whether there's sufficient information to refer the application to the Ulster County Planning Board. So, please, what's new?
Quite a bit, yeah.
Quite a bit.
Well, I guess the bottom line is it looks like the rail trail is not going to allow us to have any facilities on their land. I mean, we just have an initial reading of that from their attorney. Whether that changes or not, we don't know. But we just learned this yesterday. Right, it was the day before.
It was a couple days ago, but yeah.
Yeah. So, so what I did is, I immediately saw, well, if we have to pull everything out, what would that look like? So I put a draft together. I mean, it wasn't enough time, but I brought a couple of copies.
Okay.
I could pass them out.
I'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Why don't we leave one copy down there, and then we can put one up here. And we can
Yeah, I have 4. So
We got 4.
How far was it in their limit?
you have them there.
This is the original offer that we made to purchase that piece of land.
No, I have 4.
That we understand that it wasn't on the table, it was declined. I think it was approximately 7,100 square feet. I really kind of in the back of our property, where you see we actually worked with our landscape architect to number all the trees and plot them on the plan all the way to the south side of the property.
But most of those are going to stay.
Right.
Yeah, we had every intention,
Yeah.
taking care of them.
But I think the issue now is that, we had to pull the patio's going to be smaller in the back. May tweak the building a little more, leave that up to the architect when that's time, but we pulled that parking out and we're short from the required parking. We're 36 required and we have 31, so we're 5 short. And that's based on your standards now. I'm not sure where the, what the town's criteria is on parking, whether this board has the ability to waiver parking requirements, to modify it, or is that something we need a variance for?
We need a variance for that. Okay, guidelines.
Got it.
Very, we've done that. Yeah, but of course, we want to get a parking analysis.
So we don't have to go to the ZBA for that, this board could. I'm
But
sorry, I
we,
missed
but
that.
we have, because they're written as guidelines,
Right, you have some
we have some
discretion,
discretion.
right?
So if we were gonna hold you to that 36 and say you absolutely must have it,
We would
then
have
you
to
would
go
have to go
variance.
to
Gotcha.
get a variance. So
Okay.
we're gonna.
So we're gonna try to get you guys to cooperate. We'll work hard on that.
We'll have a discussion
Yeah.
about that. So let's,
Yeah, there's a whole like formula over here.
according to the formula, it requires 36.
Yeah, and the way that works, it's just one per room, and there's, 3 per every 20 rooms for staff. And then 1 per 3 seats for the restaurant, I guess we're calling it, yeah. So that adds up to 36. Now, based on their current hotel they operate, they don't have a car per room. A lot of times, I think people come and rent more than one room and one car, or, in a village setting like this, you may have people who come in a bus. And there's a room. No, that's what they
I
have.
mean,
Stop.
we actually, we do have people that walk to the hotel from the bus stop. That
Yeah,
happens.
people come up from the city, they don't have a car, and they want to stay in the village. There's a lot of that happening in Woodstock.
I mean, I think in our narrative that we shared with the board, it's all kind of spelled out in there. So if that's helpful.
Also, the hotel is generally, the format has a hotel around 70% occupancy. So, on any given night, 100% of the parking spaces.
Right.
I think we have more issues than the number of spots. So that's something we can come back to, like, unless it's something that you want to.
No, we want to hear all the issues.
Yeah, we do.
Talk about it.
I'm thinking like, that's great. If most of my issues, and I want to actually hear you guys talk about the traffic study, because I was a little bit confused, because it seems like there was an implication that maybe I misread it, but I think it was page 5, where we're looking at the current numbers, the existing traffic, then during the no build, then during the build. It seems like it's going down. I was just a little, if you could just talk us through how
Starter, you want to do that
Yeah.
now?
yeah, if you could.
Yeah, sure. That's
More than
great.
happy to have a summary of the traffic study that we prepared.
Yeah.
So just for the record, Stark Hip, licensed engineer with Creighton Manning, we prepared the traffic study for the project. We looked at the proposed project. Specifically, we looked at the impact to the intersection directly adjacent to the site, which is that Mohawk, Pencil Hill, Plains Road intersection. We conducted traffic counts at that intersection in December. We kind of calibrated those to any possible impacts from COVID. And then we grew the traffic volumes there. We are aware of other developments in the village, as noted in the report, but none of those other developments are expected to impact that intersection. We then estimated trip generation for the development, accounting for the 2 uses, which is the hotel and the restaurant separately. And no real crossover between the 2 uses. And then we applied those trip generation volumes to the intersection. The intersection was analyzed using SimTraffic, which is something that I think is a software that we use given the proposed configuration of the intersection. Carlito Holt, which is the village's traffic consultant, should be able to review that, and I'm happy to answer any questions from him. But the general assessment of the impact from the project is that the intersection is going to operate at a level of service A. And that's the best operation that an intersection can have. The delays that you might be seeing decreases in when you increase traffic could be due to interactions between drivers where the one approach may now be getting more time or less delay than the other approach. So if you can highlight, I think, yeah, the decreases in level in delay are minimal times. So is there a specific question that you have about that? I mean,
I'd have to look at it again. I was just taking notes earlier today when I was reviewing it, but I mean, it's just understanding how you did it. The thing is, I think any person who owns a business or who lives here, and of course, you know, you're preparing this as you requested to, but December is obviously the first slowest month in this area. So I feel like the data is a little bit skewed. Obviously, you said that you accounted for it in terms of COVID and I'm assuming time of year, but yeah, I mean.
yeah, we definitely, we made sure to count in early December, so school was in regular session. We also looked at historical data from the DOT and increased I think we increased the AM volume by 20%, we increased the PM volume by 6%, and we increased the Saturday volume by 6%. That is, while some would say we're still accounting for COVID calibration, even though volumes are appearing to come back to some kind of normal. But this study conservatively still takes into account that calibration and also grows the traffic by 1% each year for 3 years to provide that conservative analysis. Again, we're also not taking into account any crossover between restaurant guests being also hotel guests, or, you know, at the time we were assuming people might be walking to the site. That does not change the changes in the access to the rail trail don't impact the study because we were still not taking into account any access or patrons coming from the rail trail. So.
Two questions.
Sure, go right ahead.
So thanks for that intro, and it looked, you know, carefully as I can. Would be great to have Carlito Holt look at this. But the first question is just a clarification there. When you outline the roads considered in the study, Water Street is referenced as a roadway that is generally commercial. What does that mean?
The Water Street as it comes down is what's located along it is generally commercial uses. There's that strip of, I'll call it kind of like I call it like a retail plaza in a way. It's like along the rail trail, so we consider that like a generally commercial.
Market?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Okay.
which is actually very nice. I actually stopped there when I used the rail trail earlier this summer.
So that doesn't refer to the types of the automobiles or the traffic necessarily. You're saying that it's commercial in terms of the
The uses along the other side.
Thank you.
Correct. Yeah.
Another question was, what is the rationale for these other developments that you listed, and there probably are more than are listed, that won't impact the volume of traffic down any of these corridors, Water Street, Mohonk, or Plains Road?
So the intersection that we specifically looked at is that Mohonk, Pencil Hill Road intersection. And given the location of those other developments, it's not anticipated that those developments would come down these roads. They're likely to use Main Street or 32, South Chestnut. They wouldn't be entering this intersection. So we don't, while we acknowledge that they are there, we don't have them kind of, it'd be a weird detour for them to come to this intersection.
Is there a possibility that those developments would bring a higher volume of people generally to the village that would then be using that area for the rest of the Water Street Market and any other recreation that they might find coming down there for?
So we would, again, our study focuses on that one intersection.
I know.
The access to the Water Street Market is outside of the scope of the study.
You also had the 1% growth in it, so that would account for like, new businesses.
Thanks. It probably does account for some percent of that, and, but I think it's curious that you think that the Water Street Market usage wouldn't be entangled in the study of the hotel that
I see what you're saying.
the parking lot is directly across the street. and-
Right.
And that area is essentially, foot traffic and auto traffic related to people coming away. So
I
we
think-
probably want to consider that. how
I
that works
agree.
together.
But I will say that the analysis, which already takes into the conservative assumptions that we have, is showing that the intersection is going to operate at the best level of service that it can. So any degradation is likely to be minimal, even if it was a level of service C or D, those are acceptable levels of service to the DOT's highway design manual. So, we can certainly, attempt to consider how, like, kind of make some estimates on how those trips could possibly enter this intersection. But in my professional opinion, it's not going to have a drastic increase in delay at the intersection.
Remind me how you're gonna regulate parking? Is there like a gate for the parking? Cause I just wanna, I work at the Water Street Market sometimes, and if you go there on a weekend, you see cars circling, there's no parking. They actually create this makeshift row that like cars should be towed because you can't even get, what I mean? Anyway, and then there's that lower lot between the top and what is listed on here as Paul Chambry's residence, which is also full. So I'm just, from a business perspective, concerned is how you're gonna regulate overflow and managing those people just pulling into your parking and parking. That's obviously.
Non-customers.
Non-customers,
Yeah.
right.
So, customers of the market, but not customers of the hotel. And obviously, I'm sure you're gonna have like tags for your guest cars, excuse me. But I just anticipate that being
It's a very
a
good question.
welcome invitation.
So how we handle it now
Yeah.
at Woodstock Way is we actually have numbered spaces per room, like by room. So, we can tell people where they should park their cars. So that's definitely one of our solutions. And, our lobby and cameras will certainly be overlooking this area. And, I guess there could be a gate. I don't.
No, I'm not
Yeah,
suggesting.
but if
that.
you have, like, say, hikers come and they park here and then they go hiking, have nothing to do with your business,
Right.
how are you gonna deal with that?
Well, we're gonna
Have them towed?
we're gonna have a bellhop. We're gonna have people that are on the property, 24/7 that are monitoring our
Yeah.
parking spaces, just like we do now.
Yeah,
When we first opened our doors in 2018, it wasn't uncommon for someone to come into the property and try to park, but over time,
Yeah.
and when I say over time, in the first month or two,
Mhm.
with us being on top of it, people got the picture of the park.
yeah. It's hard. I know Paul Chambry, the house. Teresa had people park in her parking lot, in her driveway every day. And she has to run out and say like, this is my park, so it's just something for you to think. It's just,
I think it's a little different too when it's a commercial setting.
Yeah.
Versus someone to pull into a random roadside turnoff, which
Yeah.
Teresa's looks like, versus moving onto a hotel property and
Yeah.
trying to, but it is, and that's why we have our
Okay.
staff.
A couple of things that I'd like you to consider. First off, you said that you had a DOT study. Where was that? What roads was that DOT study involved with? The actual area at that intersection, or was that DOT taking measurements on traffic increases and decreases on 299 that runs through town?
I'm not exactly following the question. You're saying how we came up with the calibrations?
No, you listed a DOT study,
I think you just said DOT level of service.
DOT level of service. Okay.
Yes, so the DOT has a publication called the Highway Design Manual. And I believe it's chapter 5 kind of lays out the criteria for impacts and what's considered acceptable in urban and in rural environments. And generally in urban environments, Village of New Paltz, a level of service D is considered acceptable. Anything below that is obviously acceptable. as you go to E's and F's, that would be, potential mitigation could be needed for urban environments. Obviously, it's rural, different.
A couple of other things during the summertime, I think that the traffic is probably at its peak, and we have a lot of people that are going down to Sojourner Truth,
Okay.
to that parking lot, and
Where I park.
there you go.
Well, that's where I parked when I took the canoe down the walk.
And that's exactly, you know, there's a lot of people going with canoes and hiking from there. Does this take into account the increase in traffic that would come for those recreational purposes during the summer?
So we kind of assumed that the volumes that we wanted to be concerned about were school traffic. What we can do is seasonally adjust the traffic to account for summer. And we can see what available data there is taken during the summer months.
Okay.
But, you know, generally, when school is in session is when traffic is its highest. But that's a general statement.
Right, right. Across the road from you is an apartment complex. And the individual who owns that apartment complex has indicated that they would like to build in that area that is, well, yeah, up into
That
that
gravel
triangle
lot?
there, yeah, that gravel lot. And yes, and back farther into that and then up on the hillside. So I don't know how you could possibly account for that, but I think that's probably going to come down the pike in the next year, 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at other developments, we look at those that are typically before the board, so we're not kind of getting caught
Right,
in too much of a, like, what could be.
Yeah.
yeah,
If it's a true concern, if we can get some kind of estimate as to what that project would be, we could attempt to include it in our study. But, I mean, I think Carlito would echo what I'm saying. Obviously, I'm not speaking for him, but usually other developments that we need to consider in our study are those that are pending before the board. And not, kind of out there still.
I think our mayor had a,
You should look into that, John, because the back half of the before trading 7 years ago.
Yes.
So it's
good to know.
not,
It should be researched, but I remember that.
Yeah.
One more question.
Hold on, just one quick second. Where would we be able to find information on that? I mean, we can go back and look at the meeting
You can
minutes.
figure it out.
Okay, Autumn, I'll get with you on that. Is that? Go ahead, sorry.
No. So obviously, this intersection is just very strange. You know, we have these two kind of points. It's like a very sharp turn. This, obviously, there's a chiropractor's office on Mohonk Avenue. A lot of people come off this way for 32 stop, no, 208.
Right.
And so there's these two stop signs. It's, like you said in your report, Water Street's 22 feet wide. Pencil Hill, I think you said is 22. Yeah, anyway, so this is obviously a very difficult turn to make, and the same is said over here. Is there any reason why you couldn't move this entrance or point of egress over so that it's not directly by that stop sign? I mean, because I'm just anticipating if you ever make this right turn, sometimes people do a 3-point turn. You have to make sure no one's anywhere near this stop sign. So could you move that further this way so it's not at right near the point of,
So
you know.
we actually spent quite a bit.
And I might have asked
We spent a lot of time on,
That's a lot.
That's the safest
No, I think
location
Richard,
for first stop.
you also mentioned, just to kind of chime in here, we moved that one entrance down off the hill, as
Yeah,
you
we
had
made it.
suggested.
Ingress only, so there's no.
Yeah, I
site
remember
distance
that,
there.
that this is now just.
That's a, new revision based on, your recommendation. And then as well, this, I think this was purposeful.
The purpose here was to allow access to the loading and unloading zone
Mhm.
as far, I guess, north as we could, so that people entering could get to the pickup and drop off area.
Most people coming down Mohonk who wanted to go to the facility would, have direct access into that.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking about the people that are trying to go to the facility. I think about the people that are regularly driving here. So they make a right here, and in order to do this, they're pulling into your driveway, making a 3-point turn and then going up Water Street. I just have to
Well,
preface this because
I
I know
don't-
there's technical things, but there's also things that from driving these roads every single day that I just think about. So I'm not trying to doubt that you have thought of all of these things. I'm just trying to articulate what I see on a day-to-day basis. So I understand that you thought it.
Maybe a different, maybe another question is, how do you account for the idea that that's not a 90-degree turn in terms of service level? Because if someone can't turn because there's another car stopped at the light and someone's trying to pull out of the hotel, it would imply it's still to be a regular service level because there's not like a line of 10 cars waiting to turn, but it's still a gridlock and maybe a safety scenario. So is there any kind of accounting for the idea that that intersection really isn't one that you can turn in all directions in a normal way?
Well, that's an existing condition, isn't it?
I didn't say it wasn't.
I know, but I
You're
said,
saying
If we're adding to it by creating a means of egress, or excuse me, a means of egress and ingress across the street, and we're adding 24 vehicles in a certain limited amount of time, even if it's an existing condition, I
So
think
is
we
the
should
concern
make sure
that
we
there would
understand
be-
what the.
queuing in front of the driveway, that's the ingress egress driveway? Or I'm
yeah,
just
So what
wanna
I'm
make sure I'm
saying is
understanding.
in your science, how do you account for an intersection that is already one that doesn't have us? It's considered service level A in your data, but but in reality, it's not. It might be if it were a 90-degree turn that you can make with ease, but you can't.
I mean, how many cars try to make that turn? I mean, I came down that road and I said, can't make that turn.
But we do it all
yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Actually.
No, I definitely seen a lot of those people. make that turn.
Something like in practice, so during the summer, many local people, instead of taking Main Street, go this way and this way so that they can get towards the throughway. So this is actually used more by locals than,
So they come, I'm sorry, how do they get?
so
there?
if you're coming over the water, right? So this is the back of the property, the rail trail. We have the, what's the name of that bridge? Carmine Laverda Bridge. If you make that
So
immediate
they're coming
right,
down from Main Street, you're talking about? heading-
Either way.
Heading south.
either way. if
Make it
there-
right onto
You can
water.
make it right or you make left, and then to avoid Main Street traffic, a lot of people do go either up Pencil Road and then make a left on 208, go behind, I mean, they would be coming right through here. I'm not, don't
Yeah.
sound like
No,
I'm
no,
crazy.
no.
I think my bicycle.
I do it in my car all the
They come
time.
down Water Street and then take. a
And then they
left
go
on
up Mohawk or they go up Pencil.
208,
Way to-
like Flat Hill.
Right.
Yeah.
Carry on, try and bypass the Main
Maybe.
Street or Chestnut intersection.
And I think our general, sorry, Beth,
Wouldn't the traffic counts that you did during December account for that local
So that was
traffic?
my point about December being not a very busy month in this town. I mean, most restaurants close late December, early January. I mean,
Yeah, so when we did do the count, and this is the calibrated data for 2022 in December, we had 16 left turns from Water Street. These are peak hour volumes. 19 in the PM and then 8 during the Saturday midday. That's the left turn from Water on the Mohawk. And then from Mohawk turning right on the Water Street, we had 2 in the morning, 19 in the evening, and 3 on a Saturday.
I mean, I agree, but.
I live on Worth Avenue, which is close to that, and I come down to that area fairly frequently, and that just based upon just my observation, that just seems wide. I haven't counted it, but it seems wide. Which leads me to wonder, could we somehow or another, and I don't know, we don't have the capability, but somehow or another, could the right or left turn be prohibited somehow or another?
Right or left turns from Water or Mohawk?
So that you don't have to try to make that 180-degree turn in either direction.
I don't know, I don't know if you certainly could, I don't know if that's the village planning board's prerogative.
It's not, I'm just kind of tossing the question out there.
the thing is, yeah, it would be changing a pattern that people regularly use in the neighborhood to account for the hotel's impact.
Especially the residents on Plains Road.
Someone might decide that that's a good idea, but I don't know that we should recommend it so that the hotel can move the edge on it.
So I don't see, I mean, when I said before that that's a pre-existing condition, I don't see how the hotel's really impacting that. How's it making it worse?
31 cars, 31 spots, leaving a point that don't exist. Those
Yeah,
that
but-
currently exist.
Yeah, but they're not gonna be 31 like in an
Yeah.
hour.
There's
They're gonna be-
31 parking.
But I'm saying, you're asking how it, if this is an existing condition, how does it change
Yeah,
it?
phrasing your question about the entrance being right there.
I understand that.
Well, even, I mean, the car number counts from what Stark is coming up with are relatively low when you get into traffic impact problems. You know, and adding 31 cars, you know, whether over the course of a half a day or something, isn't gonna, from my point of view, isn't gonna change the traffic issue. I think it's the geometry
Right,
that's
Right,
the issue here.
right.
Is the cars moving?
Yeah.
And so based on the geometry, I don't see how the hotel is really affecting the movements in those existing intersections.
Well, we're, first
And if
off,
anything, we're gonna define the path. I mean, you got some points along here where kind of hard to tell where the road ends and the parking lot starts, you know, like.
first off, understand, we're not trying to be contentious just for the sake of it. We're just trying to toss out some questions. so
Yeah,
that-
no, and that's what we want. Yeah.
so that, you know, years from now, people won't look back and go, God, those idiots, what did they think of me?
From my point of view, I don't want to be
don't have
responsible
that.
for putting a site plan together and everybody says, that place is horrible. Like,
So the geometry is the problem, and it's a 180-degree turn. If you're coming down off of Mohonk or you're coming up from Waters, it's 180 degrees. As you're gonna try to make it. And so I don't think that from my perspective, the hotel is not going to add to the problem by virtue of the traffic.
Right.
Just by the geometry and the location of curbs and parking and preventing people from making that long looping turn. That's how it'll impact. I'm just trying to figure out, is there perhaps?
you're
a
saying
better
we're going to
way?
restrict cars from pulling into the existing parking lot to make the turn.
I would think so, yes.
Okay.
With like a do not enter sign?
I don't know. I mean, that's
Well, there's
up
going to
to
be
you guys.
curbing
but,
there, so they're not going to be able to, you know.
You know, if there's curbing, so if they can't make that turn,
Yeah.
then problem solved. I just saw this.
Well, that's what we are. We're proposing curbing.
I'm just looking at where you have the ingress and egress number, it's 26 feet wide. And someone's coming off of here, that 180-degree turn frequently. I can't tell you exactly how many, but frequently, they'll loop down into here and come back out, or they'll come way high to go around. And so my concern is that with this entrance right here, when they go in, make that 3-point turn and go, and if there would be the possibility of perhaps moving that even a few feet down, just so that you could eliminate totally them coming in there.
They come through here now, you know, maybe.
I feel like this is just a warm up for the public,
Yeah.
public
Yeah.
hearing, because this is
Right,
what,
oh.
and I just,
No, they're concerned. If I'm hearing you correctly, Chairman, is that you're worried that right now people are able to make this U-turn essentially
Mhm.
by pulling onto what's just a gravel lot for the
Pretty much.
school.
But no, you run into, when you come down and you take that right turn, the building's right there.
no, I know, I'm not saying that they pull, I'm saying a lot of times people make it 3/4 of the way, then back up, so they do like a 3-point turn. They don't hit obviously the drum stop, but they get pretty close, and especially if a car is waiting at the stop sign. And a lot of times what happens is if you're making this right, you flag that person to go because you can't.
Yeah,
Makes it right.
Yeah.
And again, existing conditions.
Yeah,
so
no,
we're
and
just trying-
that was my first reaction.
Yeah.
This is a crazy intersection
Yeah,
here.
and they're-
when we
and
first
they're looking
designed
at
this.
each other. It's
But
not-
you know, and so we gave it a lot of consideration with these entrances, and that main one, I thought, putting it here where the other two cars have to stop is the safest place to put it. Because you have all the cars looking at each other, and like you said, if one's got to wave one on, you're right there. If you push it 100 feet away, they're not going to see each other to wave each other on, and you create more of a conflict. That was my reasoning behind this, and I think Stark kind of agreed with me.
Yeah, we were trying to get it so that people could still
But-
turn right into this driveway.
But as far as people coming down Mohawk and making the right, I looked at that and I said, who's crazy enough to do that turn? And you're telling me they do it all the time.
Yeah, I do, I've seen people do it.
I think that John made one suggestion to consider, which is moving it further south. If you want to have access to the loading dock, even if you moved it 20 feet south, it would probably still satisfy that.
But what I'm saying is then that puts the guy stopped at that driveway further away from the other car's stop.
So you're trying to make it into a 3-way stop right
And
there.
trying to make it like a 3-way stop.
It's an all-way stop. It'll
It
be,
is,
yeah.
everybody's gonna have
It
a
is,
stop sign.
yeah, so now you start separating them and then, you know, you create more of a conflict because I'm not really paying attention to what the other guy's doing and I'm pulling out and You know, where, you know, that's usually when you have intersections like that, you keep everybody close together, you know, four-way stop sign.
Mhm.
You don't want to ship one off to the side a little bit. And that's what you'd be basically doing, is if you moved it only 20 feet. Or 50, even 50, you know, you'd have to move it, you know, 50 to 100, eliminate it.
I think just we'll come back to it. again.
Yeah,
It sounds
I think we
like-
kind of need to speak before.
So I have a question that's related, which is, how do we account for the fact that there's no place for pedestrians to be safe on Water Street, and now we're adding a certain amount of traffic, a certain amount of vehicle traffic, and also we're sharing that this vehicle traffic, essentially when they make right and left turns on and off Mohawk and Water Street, they take up all four lanes in order to make that wide turn, and you're indicating there'll be curbs, but there won't be sidewalks, and so I think we have to throw that ingredient in. I don't know how far that figures into a traffic study, but I think you have to make the assumption that during busy seasons and good weather, there's a certain amount of pedestrian traffic on Water Street, and they all walk in the street because there's nowhere to walk.
We can certainly look at potential countermeasures like signs or something like that. We'll do more of an investigation into that matter. Prior to this, we were kind of thinking that people would be able to access the rail trail directly, but this is going to have us be taking a second look at pedestrian access for the site. So right now, I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Let me get this straight. The rail trail people told you that you couldn't have any access to the hotel from the rail trail whatsoever.
No.
Okay, sorry.
They're speaking,
That.
So we took it off of this plan. We had all kinds of use. We have the parking going into their land. And we were looking for an easement to be able to extend the parking. We had some
And then-
patio area. We had a staircase. We had,
Staircase, so would that staircase be access to the rail trail
it
or?
would, and then we also have an ADA pathway that leads up to the rail trail as well. So if we lose the staircase, it's fine because we still have still have a path that leads right up to the rail trail.
we basically got a letter from the attorney said you can't do anything.
Okay, so I'm confused.
Well,
Can you have the path to the rail trail or not?
Well, we don't know.
You don't know.
Well, we can actually have the path from our property to the other land. That's kind of open. So somebody would walk off of our property and then onto the rail trail.
The path from Water Street across the. property.
That path, we also have put into this plan as well. We talked about that early on, where we were gonna maintain that path. And that's in there as well. It's not on this drawing, but it's on the drawings that are in it's on the other.
We just took everything out of the rail trail just for discussion purposes.
I thought this drawing, you could see the other drawing, that's why.
The one I just gave you tonight is just draft for discussion based on some information we just got from the.
But we plan to maintain that path like we talked about in the beginning, from the road to the rail trail. That's there now. Right, it won't be in the same location, but it will definitely be accessible.
On the other side.
And I would think at a minimum, something like that would be allowed.
Further, we are open to, and we talked about this before, is putting a sidewalk along this side. We had talked about that.
Sidewalk on that side. That would
Because,
solve
you know, it would,
people
to your,
walking on the street,
right.
the most dangerous part, but here.
On our side.
Walking up all the way to.
Sidewalk from where the trail has a walkway here,
Right.
from there all the way down.
Okay.
right, but, okay, but to just talk about that a little bit more, that would mean that we would have to go across that easement that the Wallkill Valley Land Trust owns, because our property ends on this blue line.
Yeah. we'd have to
And if
see.
we'd have to get it up to the rail trail so that the crosswalk, people can cross there.
All right, so let's do this. You just got the information today, so you probably haven't had time to really synthesize a new plan. You put something down here to try to provide some options. We appreciate that. So why don't you take a little bit more time for your next meeting, study a little bit further, see what you can come up with, take some of the comments that have been made and see if you can incorporate them. In the meantime, I think what we'll probably do is have our traffic consultant also look in between the two of you, that we may be able to get something that meets in the middle and will work, not for the best for both parties, but at least work for both parties. So why don't we start with that, and then we need to kind of move on with a few other things that are related to this. You had a last question for them?
Yeah, it's actually about a different element of the project. So I remember last time we had spoken about the bar, and that's open to the public. That was right?
Right.
And it looks like, is the restaurant portion new? 'Cause I
Well,
think-
we changed it to restaurant.
Restaurant, okay.
Correct.
But it looks like it's 304 square feet.
It's not actually 304, it's 200.
Okay,
Just
that-
the area that, the seating area is 200, correct?
So,
We tend, just to, further on that, it's 10 seats.
I went by there with, former chair of the Environmental, Conservation Board. And, we were wondering if you could, we noticed you put the pink ribbons on all the big trees. There were a couple of trees that we kind of wish you wouldn't take out, and we're wondering if you could put blue ribbons on. We bought some blue ribbon to put on those. I know, what?
The orange one, the pink ones were the ones we're
The
saving.
pink ones are the ones you're
The
saving.
orange is the one that.
Right, and then there are a number of saplings and other kind of smaller trees that aren't marked at all. And, we were wondering if we could put some blue ribbons on the ones we'd like to save out of those.
I mean, you
and- Yeah.
Put the
okay.
blue,
Just
we
letting
take a
you
look
know.
at it for sure, yeah.
That's, if you see blue ribbons on there, that's, we'd like you not to cut those.
Now, did you meet with the Tree Shade Commission?
No, I didn't.
Because we did, we met with the Tree Shade Commission and spoke to them about it. And then also had our landscape architect, go through a whole measurement process on all of the trees. Okay, I just want to make sure.
No, I know you did that.
Great.
There was just a couple. I mean, and then you wanted to, I feel like it's such a steep slope, and then you have these roots. Some of them were, the ones that aren't marked with saplings. I don't know whether you were gonna cut them down or not. But you want to save some of the saplings, since that's the future of the trees. And then there was a mulberry, which it's partly dead, but there's some part of it that's alive, and we've lost a lot of mulberry trees recently, and that was one. So you'll see, there'll just be a little blue ribbon on it.
Okay,
saying,
take a look at that.
well, she's crazy, or call maybe to save this one, or whatever,
It's okay. No, we love trees. It's good. We're happy to review it.
okay. So what we're gonna do is, we're going to get the issues that were outlined by our attorney. We're gonna have our attorney go over them with you so we can make sure that you're all aware of them, and that way we can be on a path for our next meeting to have some progress. So if you'd like to go ahead, please, Madam Attorney. Okay, we can do that. So I'd like to get a motion to assume lead agency status for seeker. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. We have assumed lead agency status. Right, and that was gonna be one of the last discussions on it, but yeah.
And you did discuss the following, 20 and kind of over here, that would be appropriate to do that now. I think there might probably be some updates because the traffic study didn't account for the change in number of parking. So I don't know if we were gonna do something to that or.
I'm happy to hear what Carlito thinks we can do. We can revise the study and then we can send it back to the board, and then you guys would send it to EPS Provident, or.
I still want him to review something that's. not
Right.
gonna be- Motion. Have them updated to reflect whatever the parking situation is going to be.
Okay, so we can do that, or we can just ask him to do an independent study based on that. But when do you think you'll have the revisions back?
Well, we're still also trying to establish communication with the Belleville Valley Land Trust.
Okay.
So that, assuming that we establish communication with them, and that letter that they sent to us is gonna be the record, then we'll get right after it, you know,
Why don't we hold
revising the
off?
plan.
You're saying you want to kind of hear from them first before we spend more.
We'd like to
time.
talk to them. I mean, we haven't had the
Why
opportunity
don't
to
we hold
talk.
off on sending anything to our consultant until we hear back from you, giving you a chance to talk with the Walkill Valley Land Trust.
Because that's also gonna obviously impact the sidewalk,
Right,
right? So-
right.
I agree with the answer. We talked about pedestrian question, we talked about some of the traffic discussion we've had, the parking question, you know.
Yeah.
So there's one micro issue with the parking thing is, it seems petty, but I think we're supposed to round up when we look at the parking table, and I think we rounded down in the number of required spaces. So your differential might be a little even more than.
I think the number would be the same. I think it's all- They've got to, they would actually 37 required, and at the time they were proposing 37, so it would be no.
We have 36.
Yeah, like, they're saying 36 is required, but I agree, I think.
Does that calculation include the restaurant space that's open to them? That's our-
Treated as accessible.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
We're probably gonna spend more time on parking and analyzing that too, so, you know. Some of the things is like, you know, like the staff, they have the house next door here that he says he's gonna use for staff. So the staff's not gonna need a parking spot, you know, the people, at least the people who live there, so there's some potential reduction to that. But I think we're gonna have to do that kind of analysis and get back to you guys.
Okay.
So I just concerned, are there any other issues, you know, with the plans or the whole project that we should be considering?
Want your engineer?
Mhm.
Get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're early for that
Yeah.
because we're gonna change it all probably.
You know, the plans are still. You know, how- I didn't think it's very-
Yes. Yeah. Well, the issue now is that the title, the actual deed description runs down the center of the road for most of it,
Right.
than outside.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in fact, I had a conversation with Blue Williger about that, you know, we pull it off and we keep it like a foot or two off of the actual travel lane, is that all right with them? He said, he didn't have a problem with it. He goes, that's where it's like everywhere else in the village. You know, he would plow the snow into our site and we'd have to deal with it. But he said he was gonna look at the map, which we just sent him, and get back to us if he had any other concerns along there. So I think the question came up with that line is, we threw a line there that was not on the original map, that was on the most recent one submitted. That we, you know, said, well, here's where, you know, we say a proposed, you know, we'll have to decide how we establish that. Quite often on these old properties where the deeds run to the center of the road, we just call it assumed highway bounds.
Hmm.
You know, and cut the survey off there. You know, in some cases, you know, I guess the worst cases, we would have to go to the village board and have an agreement, you know, I don't, you know.
What that.
Yeah, it's not clear to me too, and I think it gets down to, you know, how the attorneys want to handle it. You know, obviously, you know, the village has rights to the public road,
Right.
the land that's in their deed.
That was still-
Yeah, it doesn't follow exactly the center line, but it's in the road. So it's,
That was your proposed line to use for.
that's what we did. We proposed that line for density, yeah. It was, we had some, I guess it was your code enforcement officer who criticized that in a letter. Well, the county, I mean, we can't be held to the tax map people. They just throw stuff on so they can generate a tax bill. They're not surveying the property.
But I'm not.
You-
Understood, but
you
my
know,
question was, that's why I was just.
Well, somebody from my office had a discussion with them and they said, we can't change it. That's what the GIS system says. Which, is not necessarily titled, like.
Where's that?
The way the hotel would operate is the loading trucks would just stop right at the front door there and load and unload. But yeah, people are parked there, they're not gonna be able to pull out when they're unloading.
I mean, there's definitely room in here to tuck in and, we'll obviously
Smaller
direct
truck
them to
pull
tuck
in.
it in. And in fact, there are doors there that there's side doors that they can come in through.
So they would, so that's what we have. We're basically using what space we have available along the sidewalk directly up against the building. And there probably are some situations where a car won't be able to get through, depends on how much the truck driver pulls over. I think most of the
We
deliveries.
deal with
are
that
short-term.
now and, we, direct them and it's not it doesn't become an issue because we resolve it with the driver that typically comes to our property.
So, unfortunately, this site doesn't have the room where we can afford to just put a loading area designated for, big trucks to come and sit there all day or anything. And I don't think the kind of deliveries you get take long term. They're probably all short term, in and out. Yeah, they're like van trucks, yeah. So discussion on loading it, you can.
Yeah, we can have a discussion. About that. And is it acceptable to the board if we reach out to Carlito just about addressing the volume, the study volumes for the existing conditions, kind of our base volumes? See a clarification, so we provide a revised report, we're addressing as many of your comments as we can.
Typically, the
Yeah,
board
we have to
prefers-
wait until we get some, then we'll.
No, I agree, but I don't want to submit something to him, would it be acceptable if we reached out to him as an engineer and say, we wanted to discuss with you the volumes that we want to use for the base
Just
conditions?
rather you just wait.
Okay, that's fine.
Right now, I did see that letter just a while ago, and it seems like if we said they're objecting to any kind of development, I think they were.
We're hoping it's a
talking
form
about-
letter.
We might not have had all these.
Negotiating tactics.
We don't know.
When we did send it. I think, actually, our attorney did send a draft of an easement agreement that was based off of the next year. So hopefully, maybe.
No. But that,
That's been-
the negotiating tactics and boundaries. you say.
Oh, yeah.
So we really don't have enough information to refer this to Ulster County Planning Board either at this time. Yeah, gotta get all the more of this stuff together before we do that, so. we're kind of at a stopping point. So, you know, as soon as you resolve the issue with the rail trail, and that will give you some more flexibility as you start to look at some of the traffic and you come back here next, hopefully we'll have some time to be a bit more productive. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is based upon getting that letter at
We
the last
understand.
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just get, did you, before you make the motion for the lead agency, was that passed? I missed that.
Yes,
Your
we did.
lead agency.
Yes,
Okay.
we got the lead agency for the secret. Okay?
Okay, great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, so the next application is PB 2304, 88 North Chestnut Street, Lila Lucky's LLC. So take a seventh inning stretch if you need to for a moment here.
Yeah. We can start with the third one.
Okay.
Okay. We are now looking at PB 2304, 88 North Chestnut Street. Somebody for an application for a site plan and special use permit as a retail business not otherwise mentioned. Again, that's what we're doing, is doing a special use permit for a retail business not otherwise mentioned. Property located on State Route 32, exempt from referral to the County Planning Board. We will need to schedule a public hearing, but the next steps are really to listen to the presentation, any modifications you may have. We'll look at some of the issues that are below. And yeah, I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. So please, updates.
Good to see everyone again. For the record, Kristen Motel, partner at the law firm Petty and Fader for Lila Lucky, the applicant here. Pete Stevens, the owner of Lila Lucky's, is here tonight. Dookie Lee Hartford, River Architect, Ruben Lindo, Grid Iron Management, and Star Kip, as you are familiar with, from Triton Manning, our traffic consultant, Aaron Moore from the Figure Ground Studio, RLA Landscape Design, Pat Pendergast, civil engineer, and my colleague Alex Fausner, associate on this project. So last time we were here before you, we presented an initial overview of what we're proposing, which is the site plan and special permit approval for the retail cannabis dispensary. We're proposing to operate that in the existing one-story building that was previously operated as a lawnmower auto repair shop. And we're going to adaptively reuse that. So really very minimal changes to the footprint of no changes to the footprint of the existing building, minimal changes to the outside, really giving it a facelift, improving the parking flow and configuration by eliminating one of the non-conforming curb cuts, providing a new sidewalk along Mulberry Street, bike rack, landscaping. And since we last appeared before you, we received comments from your attorney, your code enforcement officer, and also just members of the planning board from our discussion last time. So we have revised our materials to include the landscape design drawings, amended site plan drawings, we have civil engineer drawings that were provided to you, as well as a letter from the property owner and the landlord regarding the use of that adjacent parcel for overflow parking and circulation during the first 90 days. Also, since we last met with you, Ruben, who is the industry consultant with this group, was able to meet with the chief of police to talk a little bit more about those traffic concerns that are addressed in Creighton Manning's amended traffic study. So Ruben, I don't know if you want to review your meeting with Chief Lucchese.
Sure. I had Ruben Lindo. I had a meeting with Chief Lucchese about 2 weeks ago, and we discussed the process for hiring the police department to help with traffic flow and traffic control. We also discussed an alternate traffic pattern to help mitigate traffic congestion coming up Chestnut and onto Mulberry, and how we would navigate and utilize side streets, and with their direction and the police department expertise on how to really move the traffic along. Chief Lucchese gave us an application in which we would fill out to hire the police department. We discussed a little bit about the plan, and Chief Lucchese did not want to really say specifically how he would do it, because he said depending on what's going on in the municipality during that period when we need them, we'll come up with a plan sufficient. He would submit the plan, as the police department would submit the plan to whoever gives us the special permit to hire them at that time. Really, the main concern for Chief Lucchese was just the hours of operation and when he would need the staff. And he was on board with helping us do that. So we had previously discussed hours of operation, opening at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, or 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, and on the weekend, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then keeping open on the weekends until 8 p.m. So 10 to 8 as our hours of operation. But we're really open to suggestions, and really will follow whatever retail hours of operation that currently exist.
I know that a couple of our liquor stores as a comparative model, they open till 7, 9, 10. So staying open till 8 is, I don't think that that's gonna be an issue.
Yes, so again, Stark Hip with Creighton Manning. Since our last appearance, we revised the study to account for some comments raised by the board. Specifically, we looked at or prepared a sensitivity analysis that's included in the revised study that looks at 2 additional trip distribution scenarios, where the initial study looked at 80% of all entering and exiting traffic coming through the Mulberry North Chestnut Street intersection. We looked at also 65% of all entering and exiting traffic passing through that intersection, and 50% of all entering and exiting traffic passing through that intersection. The analysis showed that the operations at the intersection would remain the same, if not some delay would reduce with the reduction in trips being entered into that intersection. We also revised the report based on some of the village's attorney's comments about the number of bicycle parking spaces, showing that we exceed the number required. And we also changed or revised the reference to the number of required spaces, I believe from 1 to 200 square feet to 1 to 500. Other than that, we also, echoing what Ruben said earlier about the applicant's intent to enlist the police department in creating a traffic control plan for the initial opening of the project, or of the dispensary. That is spoken about in the report as well. So that was added in since our last appearance. I believe that covers. Yes, sorry. So also the, I believe another comment that came up was about potential overflow, or the need for overflow parking. And forgive me, I don't know where it stands, but there is discussions that the landlord of the property has also an adjacent property that could be utilized as overflow parking if it's needed. And that would eliminate the need for eliminate the potential for parking in offsite areas like the nearby Moriello pool, which we're aware is a concern of the board.
Yeah, we need to be very clear about that because the town has already drawn the line in the sand, and said no.
Yeah, that's our understanding as well.
So,
You know, that letter from the landlord that says.
okay, we have some issues that we do need to discuss here, and we're gonna let our attorney kind of lead us through that discussion.
Then is what we're gonna do, ask mostly technical, legal. Do we want to cover anything about? this?
Well, do you have questions? Feel free to go right ahead.
I think that what we're hearing is that there is an anticipation of likely high volume at the outset of the opening, and we've been speculating about that. There might even be some good data about that you might share with the board, around what that looks like in communities where, one of the first licenses opens and it's well attended at the beginning of the opening. And it sounds like it's concerning enough that we're gonna probably need a traffic plan that involves police department monitoring and supporting the flow. So I'm wondering, from a traffic perspective, it helped me understand, because I looked at the study before the last meeting, but I didn't look at the updates yet. I apologize for that. But how has the traffic study accounted for that sort of early surge consideration as opposed to what I think seems more like a steady state consideration around the percentages of where people will come from and go to?
Right.
And if it hasn't yet, how are we gonna look at that?
So the traffic study does look at as you said, the steady state of the dispensary operating. I think when accounting for that opening period, that's when we will go back to the police chief and we'll get his professional opinion and advice on how to handle operations during that 90-day period because of when that 90-day period would be happening. So we can't really say it's tough to analyze it from a traffic standpoint because depending on when the dispensary opens, we need to account for what's going on specifically in the village at that time. And that's the intent of reaching back out to the police chief to develop that plan.
But it sounds like we might be in a little bit of a, I guess, chicken egg scenario where we're being asked to approve based on the idea that we'll coordinate with the police department on how to address it. But if we don't know how the police department will address it or what we're even addressing, we might not be able to account for that in our consideration and approval. So I guess one of the things I'm asking is it possible, I'd imagine these simulators you have like dials and you can turn it up and account for what we're describing here. Like, is there a scenario you could share with us that would at least let us know what that police department involvement would need to be addressing? Does it go from I think Henry W. with the split lanes now has improved, but there was a time when it was a D bordering on an F. Now maybe it's a C bordering on a D, in those first 90 days with whatever data that you might be able to provide about what typically happens during an opening period. What does it become?
So if I could jump in there. real quick.
Hold on just a second. Now, we did have a fairly robust discussion about the previous applicant. And that applicant put together a management plan.
Right,
Or-
that applicant offered a concession that had to do with an imposition on their business that they were willing to put out in order to alleviate any concerns we would have. They basically said,
that
we're
is-
gonna regulate it by only selling to 4 people an
Right.
hour.
Right.
So
This group might not be interested. Sorry, Ruben, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
This group might not be interested in doing that, so we want to know what we might be trying to improve.
And he also, that applicant also, said initially it was going to be, for the first 90 days, it was going to be drive up, wasn't it?
appointment only.
Appointment only, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I'll address both of those, if you will. So typically in this industry, and as we've seen in other jurisdictions, and similar municipalities, two things happen. one, when you go to create an appointment only model, that's where you see the backup, right? Because people want to get in queue, they want to be first in line. So that's where you typically see that. It's not been feasible in any other jurisdiction. Matter of fact, Massachusetts wrote specific code in their cannabis law that prevented that in the first 90 days for that very reason. They didn't want people loitering around. They didn't want the big pile lineup. If you saw what happened in New York City on the opening of the first dispensary, it went around for 4 blocks from Astor Place down Broadway, back up 8th Avenue. It was insanity. And that became the picture that everyone sees in this industry. What we're proposing to do, and what's not even been mentioned, is we have the ability to do delivery. So the mitigation plan of that, and we're working it into our business plan now, would be to, in the first 90 days, to go to a delivery model, which would offset some of that traffic. And we've seen that.
Now, would that be solely delivery? You wouldn't be able to do any sort of walk-in?
No, it would be in conjunction with. And what we've seen is a reduction in foot traffic and vehicle traffic in and out of parking lots when you add that delivery model. Because again, the novelty of this industry in the first 90 days is just the thrill of getting legal cannabis, right? And then perhaps maybe coming into a dispensary and making a purchase. We're going to be well beyond that. By the time we get a license, we're going to see the novelty wane, because people are going to already have experienced an opportunity if this card program gets off the ground. That's why the state went with the card program as a precursor to this, to kind of shake those trees and get some of these wrinkles out, because that's the #1 pushback in smaller municipalities. We can't handle the influx of pedestrian traffic and foot traffic. In my own town, in Saugerties, we've come up with a very specific plan in the village to handle that. And the plan was very similar. They're taking my advice on, if you use the delivery model as the onset, and your first 3 hours of opening are delivery only, and then you roll into mixed use customer acquisition and customer purchases, it reduces the traffic flow significantly.
And Lila Lucky's is not a card dispensary.
Right,
We discussed
right.
last time. So there will be more card dispensaries. There's another 30 licenses for card were granted a couple weeks ago. There's 66 already licensed that are going to be open around the state. So we'll be after that. There's 150 total they're going to give out. We're going to be after that.
40 more coming out in the next 4 weeks.
Are they spacing them out? I mean, we have 3 applications for dispensaries and they're all in the same block.
So the beauty of us sitting in front of you today is you actually have a physical applicant here.
Okay.
The others are fiction. They're
Speculative?
Yeah.
they're speculative,
Okay.
right? And matter of fact, one of them contacted my client today and asked her to rent their space. Saw an article in the paper. So we know typically the reason why the state says that the applicant, the license holder, has to obtain a special use permit is to prevent landlords from going and staking claim the properties and preventing people access to the plant and getting into opening businesses.
So you're saying out of the 3 that you're most likely to get it and that they're more likely to grant it to one than to another?
Out of the 3 you've seen, this is the only one where there's an actual applicant, state applicant and operator before you. The other 2 were just property owners without a licensed applicant.
Let's stop right now, just to make sure that we're
One more.
we're only talking about granting a special use permit. Whoever gets the license, we have nothing to do with
I
that.
know, I understand
just-
that.
So we probably should not wander too far into asking questions about when do you anticipate you are going to get the license or someone's going to get the license. We're here just to do the special use permit. Once we've done that, the rest of it is there.
So can I just answer Rachel's part of the question that she asked initially? The state did designate the amount of space that is required, and they made that suggestion to the municipalities in this temporary regulations that came out. And they're saying 1,000 feet between dispensaries, but municipalities have the option to override that.
So if I could just finish, it might only be me, but I'm wondering about the rest of the board, that we would request just an analysis that takes into account the likely early customer volume you would see with all the considerations of the 150 initial card license issue. All the things you know are going to happen. The consideration of your delivery and how those vehicles are going to come and go, or that vehicle, what have you. But how that's also going to offset the number of the volume that might come through the store. And just extend the study slightly so that we could be able to approve or question the impact of the dispensary's opening period in this area. And I think in terms of equity across the other the projects that are also proposing this, it is certainly something that we focused on with all of our the other conversation and the other conversation. And I think we will certainly be asking the same set of consideration of any other applicant. So we'll just kind of address the idea of what it's going to look like.
We'll provide an executive summary or an overview with a mitigation plan is kind of what you're asking for. And I've written these.
And the traffic impact of it.
Yeah, I'll work with Stark's team and we'll put something together. And we'll get to you.
Okay, at this point then, I guess what we need to do, let's see. Actually, I think you wanted to cover whether there should be a restrictive covenant, these other.
That's the licensing that they would.
So
The regulations are still in draft. There's actually contradictory provisions regarding that. So, I mean, the public comment period closes on Monday, the 13th. And then, you know, we're probably looking at, based on what Chair Wright has said as of 2 hours ago, another couple of months for their final. So I guess the answer to that is TBD. We're waiting on the guidance from the state, but it does look like in other jurisdictions, municipalities are going to have to provide that, especially given, you know, that municipalities like the Village of New Paltz that have specific downtown areas, right? It's not widespread commercial development. And for the card program, there is no such guidance, right? So that's just a moot point for the first.
So you're saying that's a restriction that is only for,
Only be for the full adult use licenses, as it's written right now, it could even be not included in the final regulation.
So the likelihood is that they're gonna remove any distance restriction between dispensaries. Initially, the idea was to prevent, when we started working on fair access at the state level, it was to prevent municipalities from clumping these businesses in a corner somewhere and just really getting them spread out in communities. What's really shaping up now is they're gonna waive that and it'll be done in what's called regulatory review. And then regulatory review is done every 60, 90, and 180 days at the state level. And they'll release a report on the at the 6 month and 1 year period after review. So we're more than likely going to see that restriction.
What I understand, it's not their property, it's, the owner of that property. Does that still need?
If they're relying on it as part of their use, then just as they, so right now, that it already involves two parts. You have the parcel with the main use and then the parcel adjacent, which is really primarily the parking. So just as they're having those two part of the, if they're going to add in anything, that'll have in there as well, and some way to enforce for both of the parking parcels, whether by covenant or something on file with the county that requires those to be used for parking for as long as use is happening on the property. You would definitely agree to a condition of approval that there's a recorded covenant or an easement, but until there's an approval, I don't think the landlord and our applicant are willing to.
Well, let me ask you this,
Well, the covenant wouldn't be in place before, that would be.
Right, right.
Approval,
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, an owner's endorsement, I think we had submitted to the two parcels that are currently on there, another one to this third parcel, they're gonna be showing some type of parking.
We did submit a letter, a signed letter from the landlord saying that they'd be willing to let us do it. So I mean, it's not, we don't control it, we don't have the right to control it for a lease agreement. There would be a separate covenant or easement agreement recorded once a special permit approval was issued or conditioned on having that agreement.
is it necessary to make it as part of the application? Can they make that agreement amongst themselves in private form and not have it affect the application?
Yes, but if it's something that is going to be sent to the board, something that they
Well,
want the board to consider when they, when it's not part, then it will.
do they currently have, do you currently have an idea of what? of the
So
different
it's
parking?
not, I think that, I'm sorry, I'm hearing you. Ashley, I think that you might be confusing the issue here. It's not additional parking to get us to the specific number of parking spaces permitted and allowed.
Then why have it? Because
You asked us to have overflow parking for
This is
traffic.
why I'm asking for what that sort of initial possible surge scenario looks like, because we may say, oh, it seems like the traffic surge that we might project with all the considerations is gonna need 15 more spots than what you have. How are you gonna account for that? And then we would be able to point.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter if you're gonna
This
present that
offsite
with
lot.
with a legal agreement. I was just thinking it's just one more legal agreement you have to have as part of the application to get it to function. And I just thought if you could have that, if you already have the parking that's required, and if you made a private agreement that doesn't affect the application for overflow parking, then it'd be one less thing to have to.
We're a typical use that we don't have this concern and we haven't drilled down on this concern with other applicants, then I wouldn't. It wouldn't be necessary if they needed 18, they got 18, but if we're considering this idea of the potential for a surge demand, I think we would want to.
So it'll be included as part of the mitigation plan then. I mean, I guess that's the only way to really.
Maybe it could even go away.
Yeah.
When at such time there's no longer any demand.
Pardon our interruption there. Ashley, please go right ahead. Mhm.
Fine. And I think something to provide for whether you wanna have any street furniture publicly.
Right.
Whether I can-
That's one, why don't we pause for just a moment and have a brief discussion about that, because I know the lighting and all that, those technical details will be part of the site plan and the construction plan. But comments on street furniture or waste receptacles?
Well, I kind of have a bigger question about the NDR design standards and how they apply to this project. I mean, I know it's just an application for a special or change of use. But clearly you're making a lot of improvements to the site. Big changes to the parking and the exterior and adding windows and stuff. So at what point do we have to hold this building to the other NBR design standards? I mean, it seems like if yeah, like this building should be, you know, following, like having more of a storefront that's parallel to the street and having more of a streetscape. And I mean,
Part of doing that though, creates two problems. The first problem is the design in which we have to, the physical structure of the building and the way we have to lay it out. We can't have a store, quote unquote, storefront visible, because the state regulation is going to require us to make it less conspicuous, right? And make it so that it's not an attractive nuisance from the street view. We've seen this in other jurisdictions. We're seeing it now in other municipalities adjacent to New Fall, right? Kingston's having the same discussions. And when I met with the Kingston Planning Board a week ago, I showed them to give them the understanding, I showed them a physical picture of what a dispensary from the street view looks like and what a regular storefront looks like. We can't advertise window, right? So it's, I understand what you're saying, but if the building physically doesn't allow us to do that, then you're asking for us to change the structure. of the
And the
building.
proposal here is adaptive reuse. I mean, really, we're adding landscaping, which Aaron can walk you through because we want to get more. And we're not adding more parking spaces than there are already now. We're just,
There's the NBR district, neighborhood business residential district, was designed to integrate commercial and residential. And this particular building does not face 32, so it faces an off street. So, with the amount of work that's being done, I guess the question was, if you're familiar with those standards, then it does have certain requirements. And if we go through a certain amount of reconfiguration, reconstruction, development, landscaping, at what point does it go from being taking a building and adapting the use to something else rather than being a machine shop, to being.
I mean,
That's-
I
that's-
hear
that's-
what you're
that's-
saying.
yeah.
We can scale it back.
No, that's just,
I'm afraid, but
no, that's just a question that to give you
Yeah.
context.
yeah, no, it's helpful.
And that's more of
Yeah,
a good discussion that
if
the board
anything,
has to have than you would
Yeah.
need to discuss.
Well, I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if anything, I think there should be more effort put into the design to make it fit with the rest of the buildings in the NBR, such as adding more architectural features to the other sides of the building, so that the building from 32 doesn't look so much like a machine shop.
But the front of the building right now, there was a showroom in the front. I mean, that's not gonna go away.
Right, the front of the building on Mulberry Street?
On 30, if you come up 32 and you were to look into that building, they used to have a Husqvarna sign hanging in the window.
Right,
There
but
was a showroom.
the entrance was not on 32
Right.
as such.
Yeah.
The entrance was on Mulberry.
Doors don't, it's not that big, like it looks like you've got glass door. I'm looking, I took pictures of everything today. You got like glass doors that just go nowhere, and it doesn't, it's a pretty unassuming building. Are you gonna, and what color is it? Gonna stay blue?
It's proposed, but I mean, we're open
Yeah.
to the board's feedback, obviously. This is
It's just gonna be facing on Mulberry as opposed to
that's
being
the Mulberry
facing,
side.
32.
That's the Mulberry side.
So that's a discussion that we need to have internally as a board
Yeah, I think
more than anything else.
Some of it's open to interpretation, like what you think fits in that area, I might disagree with, so I don't wanna.
Yeah.
Zach, I'd have the question, is there anything, I understand there's some aesthetic and design questions that you might ask about the compliance with the MBR, but is there anything from a construction and use perspective that you think might be in conflict with the NBR requirement? I mean, you were talking about the requirement of mixed use and multiple stories and all that. This isn't, that you thinking that maybe the project hits the threshold where we couldn't approve it as this use without it then complying with
Yeah,
the bigger
I guess
idea?
I'm wondering what that threshold is, like how many exterior changes does the applicant have to make before they have to abide by
Well,
the zoning code?
I don't think that it,
Demolish.
right.
Demolishing.
Yeah.
The architect, like that, where there are elements NBR that can apply as to those items, but not have, as far as the location of the building, they're not gonna be using that kind of.
Things that they're changing, you can apply.
landscaping, and I think like that, they.
Exterior furniture. Mhm. Yeah.
residents that are interested for
Yeah, I mean, I want to try to make sure that we do have a continuous streetscape.
right.
And it's all part of a cohesive district.
Right.
And I think that's what they're trying to do with the landscape. It sounds like to me with the landscaping is there.
That's
If
not-
we have
that's not
possessions,
enough.
and you did mention the bike rack, which is.
And then you sidewalk,
So
like
you
mulberry.
the bike rack across at zero. I mean, I don't.
Let's do this, as a potential compromise here. Why don't you, at our next meeting, come with some of the,
Yeah,
more aesthetic design pieces that you think would work. And that could give them an opportunity to respond. I think they look at it and they can take it and make a response on it. And that way we can try to make it fit within the whole look of that area that we're trying to go for.
sure. Yeah, I can do that. I appreciate the consideration of that.
So I'm sorry, we were talking about some of the outdoor furniture. I think that the feeling I get is that the outdoor furniture is something that we're going to require you to have. Benches, bike racks, things of that nature that would add to more neighborhood feel. I think if you look across the street at your neighbors, that will give you a sense of what we're looking for.
We, you know what, I think we might be able to take a look at those standards and provide like a supplemental
Mhm.
condition that addresses that, so we don't need to wait for comments. I know we did amend the landscaping plan, and the lighting plan, so Aaron, I don't know if you want to just provide, because you looked at those standards.
Yeah, I kind of went by the standards and actually would have a question about the benches and where and what street, which face
Good
you would
point.
prefer them, because
Yeah.
that was something I came across when I was thinking about it, and I didn't put them, anyway, so we can.
With the
Well,
microphone.
part of the idea was to have that section of the road be similar to a new Main Street as an idea.
Right, not mulberry, but
How about right here?
Sure. And just so basically in compliance with the NBR zoning, I kind of put these 30 feet on center. And, alternated the trees here in relationship. There's an overhead line, but it goes this way. So these trees are all free to get big and become beautiful trees. I picked oaks and hop hornbeams. They support, oaks support like 550 species of caterpillars. And then there's Kwanzaa cherries that are there, which are not native, but they're there and they're pretty. So like this also provides for them to still get the light that they need. Along here, just kind of a native understory planting to give screening and buffering between the properties. And, kind of having a couple evergreens, but it's like a mix of evergreens and trees and shrubs. And then this is more of just a pollinator garden. I actually printed out, I can give you all of the pollinators that are supported by this garden because it's something I really care about. And so this is just a small, it's small. It's actually not small in relationship to what people do in average, but it wouldn't be in bloom for pollinators all season and support the architecture and be kind of welcoming along this side. And in terms of the benches, if this is the streetscape you're going for, I'm imagining you would want them along this edge. They're just kind of providing places to be under the shade trees. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the push here was to kind of, nestle and invite into the entrance, but we can kind of also add some more along there to create more of a.
Okay,
Yeah.
Waste receptacles, probably closer to that 32 than.
Okay. Oh, yes, this is the waste.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're right there.
those are
Well,
waste
public
receptacles
use.
for the
We're talking like public
Oh,
trash.
public, yeah. So yeah, those along kind of this, and there's bike racks here, but then, the sidewalk improvement. But yeah, you can kind of easily see they would nestle in right here pretty well.
the entrance and exit the same location?
Yeah.
different doors,
Two different doors.
same frontage, so.
to add a little bit note about, which street are we facing? I mean, this is where the parking is, and naturally, this is where the, yeah, I'm sorry, the parking is accessed from Mulberry, and therefore, the entry to the building is just naturally there. I mean, if we had to, go from, Route, to, it's just.
Not suggesting it, I'm just.
Okay.
Any other?
And there's no prohibitions in the code for having, feeding or furniture, like outdoor furniture.
Well, I was gonna say that about people congregating. I mean, that's gonna be the balance here, right, with security.
Why wouldn't you put it in front of the building?
Just along the street.
On the 32 side.
32. yeah. You've got something on your mind, so please.
No, no,
Go ahead.
we'll include it, but, as an industry professional, that is the second worst thing you'd ever want to do in front of a dispensary. I don't care if it's on the front, on the side, in the back, is having people have a spot to sit and observe and watch. It's like, it's a nightmare. It is a security, it is a much more than a security risk, because we as business owners have an obligation not to allow consumption within 500 feet of our location. So if people, I mean, now we're gonna be putting a woman business owner in the potential confrontational situation to go out and tell people that they can't sit and consume the
Well, I
products
guess,
that they just
would
bought.
the board be willing to waive the bench requirement, given that, given these factors?
Not a requirement, that's just a concern,
It's not a requirement.
Yeah, it's, for the guidelines, yeah, that we try to encourage for the downtown. people. So I think that's okay.
After the first year, we'll donate a bench somewhere else.
There you go. There you go.
We put one at Stewart's.
Yeah, those are good points. I think that's, and I think that, given that they're guidelines, why don't you go ahead and make your design without them and. No,
Still like to hear from, if they exactly had anything particular in the next meeting.
yeah, I think that's something.
An opportunity, the patient in this district that we care a lot about.
But actually, you want to continue? Not have a chance to look at it and the presentation of the landscaping plan tonight. Do you have something that you did, or is that already part of the packet, what you just presented? Okay.
Yeah, everything's in there. Not that list I just gave you, but that's, I can send it.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
So, our task then for the next meeting is the lighting design. Look at the landscaping plan that they have. Zach's gonna have some information. I think we're gonna be making some progress toward the traffic plan. You know, yes, we need to be a little farther along before we start the public hearing. And get that over there.
So in terms of timing, when we have our amendments to the traffic, do you want us to return, or are we coordinating directly with DCS Provident, or start coordinating with them to get revisions in place?
If you have a-
They'll give their comments to the court, because we then know we review at a meeting, and then we'll get their comments. And then they'll.
If you would please, if you can just reach out to Mr. Holt and urge him to moving on more rapidly on this, we can get it back and get the process moving forward. It actually would be best if you went through her to communicate with them. That way we have one point of contact and she can disseminate the information for us. Okay, so I think we're kind of at a stopping point. I think we both know what our task list is for the next meeting, and hopefully we'll get to a point where it'll just start to stumble forward.
So we'll plan on attending the next meeting to present the amendments to traffic, and then the public hearing will be set at that time.
Yep.
Okay. So I think it's probably wanna have their comments, and we'll see that.
In the next meeting, talking about the traffic, then we're prepared to set the public hearing and push forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is PB 2305, 1618 Mulberry Street. An application for subdivision approval to consolidate two existing lots into a single lot. One is occupied lot, one is a vacant parcel. And it's going to go from a correct. Okay, so this is an unlisted action due to the subdivision component. Property within 500 feet of State Route 32, exempt from referral letter agreement with Ulster County Planning Board, so long as an increase in parking is not required by the local statute. Plans to show the parking requirements confirm the site already contains the requisite number of spaces, otherwise referral to the Ulster County Planning Board will be necessary. We've got a list of some next steps. We're going to listen to your presentation. We've looked at the sketch plan, and we need to look at some issues like whether the subject to limiting physical conditions. And then we've got to go right through those issues. So yep. So want to get a motion to classify this application as an unlisted action in according to secret. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we've taken care of that. So please, go right ahead.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Steve Pauly from Control Point Associates, representing Jesse Davis. And yeah. I didn't bring a posse with me today, so it's just me. You summed it up. It's a lot consolidation of two tax parcels. It's currently under one deed. It's currently a two-family house. I believe it's a rental.
Yes, it looks like.
He's got it out here, and he would like to turn it into a one-family house and move into it.
Okay.
That's his goal.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we're looking to delete that lot line and create one parcel out of it. There is an encroachment you see to the west, a building encroaching onto the property by 2.4 feet. That building is in the process of being raised. That's being taken out of there. So that's no longer going to be an encroachment. There is a driveway that crosses from one lot to the next. That's left over from when Schoonover owned it all. And then you probably recall back in 2012, he subdivided it. And once before that in 2007. There is no deeded right of way, and what's going to happen with that gravel driveway, I can't say right off. If you have a recommendation just to block it off, I would show that as a proposal. But really meets all zoning requirements. And so we are asking for lot consolidation and to move on to the next subdivision step.
Is he gonna renovate the building or is he gonna tear it down?
I believe he's gonna renovate it. And I don't know, and I shouldn't say, so I shouldn't say it. He might put an addition on it. It's a possibility.
And it's got the two wooden, it's definitely, it's got the two front doors, the two wooden stairways up. It looks like it has a lot of parking. It's got a pretty, I don't know. It's definitely plant some stuff there. It's pretty practical. I mean, I'm sorry, there's like houses like.
Well, that's a
it's
difference
hardly
between a
gonna be
rental and somebody owning it themselves. And so I would imagine there'd be some improvements there.
The consideration for the application is only the lot line.
Yes.
Consolidation. And that. Family.
Yeah,
If
it's
there's any
not,
speculation on what's the next thing that might happen, then that may have to be considered in our consideration, so we shouldn't consider it.
Wow, that was good.
I
agree.
started talking at 9:07.
Looking down at that driveway you had mentioned, that that gravel driveway connects to that adjacent parcel. So whether the board might want that, what kind of a U shape, that kind of the bottom of the U that would connect there. To be that connection.
Yeah. Okay. So that, I think we're agreed that that's gonna be one of the requirements that we have is to remove the one driveway, gravel driveway. Whether you, right,
that we would be able to do. We wouldn't be able to remove the driveway from the adjoining parcel.
Right.
But separate those two.
right.
Yes. That's on the west side of the property, set back from the road?
Falling down.
On their property from
Right, and actually, during the time of the 2012 subdivision, one of the requirements was that that building be removed. It's being done now.
Okay. That'll take care of that issue. Yeah, and when we talk about limiting factors, is it rock, is it just pure rock, or is there wetlands on it? Is there a marshy area? That sort of information we're gonna need.
Or it should be, that should be covered under the EAF.
Right, and we're going to authorize our planning board attorney to prepare an EA, that's part two here as part of this. Do that tonight. Great. But just to give you a bit of information on it, so. So really, what else we got here? After we need to go through before we do the last couple of pieces.
one.
And then the public hearing.
It's in a note, it is on note form. Yes. Yes. Note 10.
Comfortable waiving preliminary plat requirements.
Who wants it? It's not wet and flat.
Okay. So I need someone to move.
So moved.
Second,
Aye.
all in favor? Aye.
What she said.
Yeah, what she said. Okay, so we've taken care of that. We want to get a motion to authorize our planning board attorney to prepare the EAF Part 2. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Then the last thing really we need to do is look at scheduling a public hearing. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I appreciate that, yes. Okay, so, when is the next available public hearing? Will that be in March that he could make, Autumn? Okay. So I'd like a motion to set the public hearing for application PB 2305, to be in March. What's the date? March 7th. Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. So we've got to set up for that, public hearing.
And I'll look into it, if we do the advertising or you
Reach
do.
out to Autumn and she will give you all of the necessary information to get you going on that. She can give you the contact information for our village engineer.
Very good.
So that's it. That's what we got for tonight.
Okay, yes. And then you do your part 2, the EAF?
Yes, she's gonna start on the EAF. We'll be looking at that probably in the next meeting. And moving right along. We rarely get an easy one. This is an easy one.
Yeah. Good, so we'll follow through with our advertising. Okay. Okay, yes, I'm clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll see you next month, in a couple months.
Well, there you are.
Yes.
So the next application is PB 2220. It's 29 South Chestnut Street. I am going to recuse myself while this goes forward.
Okay, I guess I'm
Take
acting
it
chair.
away.
All right, PB 22-20 South Chestnut Street. Can you just walk us through any changes to the?
Sure. So,
From our last meeting, it was requested and required that I submit to the Historic Preservation Commission, which I did. And I'm on their agenda for next week. We modified the parking and I wrote a letter stating current affairs as they are now, and that I don't think there'll be an impact if we're, I think we're one under versus 10. Yeah. Submitted that. I believe I submitted a cut sheet of the proposed lighting, show that it was full cutoff. And I believe we're still waiting for a determination from Corey on this rear setback and use. And I haven't heard anything on that.
So, Autumn, we definitely didn't hear anything from Corey. Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right. Well.
My review of the code, just having some knowledge of the code from my past. There is a section in there that says, as long as I am not increasing the nonconformity, that and it's a allowable use. But I guess you would hear that. Right, so, right. Right. And I think the code addresses the change of use as long as it's an allowable. That doesn't trigger. I don't know the exact section, but I can provide that. I believe I showed that to Corey as well. That section. But it is, but the barn is, I mean, that's part of the reason I'm going for the historic review. The barn is from the 1915 era. And I'm not aware of any additions ever done to it.
So it's very likely legal pre-existing. Yeah.
So the barn, the red and white building behind it. That's what you're talking about.
That was built as a horse barn, then converted to a garage when cars came out.
And you're using that as part of your operation?
Yeah, that is.
That is the operation.
Oh, wait, the entire thing is in the barn behind the building front. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the building.
Okay, so I'd like to just talk a little about the parking situation then. I'm not quite clear on what you were writing, Ashley, about the parking calculation. Could you just explain why? And. No,
I was just gonna say, based off of the information that you provided and just knowing that area, I'm comfortable with making that.
right,
Residential and all. The three then and prior into that probably would be on top of that, the reduction in plastic. Residential, I think. That's pretty powerful. And reduction, adding on top
yeah,
of the road.
I agree that office and residential should, you know, apply or.
Here there.
Right, yeah, the reduction can be applied,
All the buildings in front of the barn?
Yes, if they're both on the same property.
Okay. And that looks like it's mostly offices.
and residential.
There's apartments on top of it.
There's one, two-bedroom apartment on the second floor.
So there's one apartment and then the rest are offices.
So can we go through the correct calculation based on the reduction, and then can you share what the number of spaces you accounted for, and we'll know the differential, and we can make a decision on that.
Right.
Not that's going to be parked there, there'll be like a van or something to pick up kegs and distribute it.
We also have to deliver the ingredients. Right?
Yeah, most of that, yes, will be picked up by us. There's a local malt house in Dutchess County.
Stuff. We found the category for. How many would be?
Okay, I think that's everything related to parking. Are there any other questions about parking? Not, there is, one issue with the lighting. Well, did everyone review the lighting proposal with the features that are suggested? I think those all looked good. However, the exterior lights are not shown on the site plan currently, which the code does require.
Those are the cuts that you included, or they're just not drawn on? I only included them on the elevations they didn't show.
And okay, right, so we reviewed the lighting specifications, I think they are compliant with village code. Right, so let's use full cutoff luminaries, right? Okay, and you mentioned that the plans are being reviewed by the HPC, so we look forward to hearing their feedback. Okay, and Corey got back to us. I think that all of those questions were resolved. Okay. Okay, I'd like to get a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Um,
You're in on this one, Craig.
Oh, I can vote? Oh, okay, yep, I'm in.
cool. And so then lastly, I think we'd like to schedule a public hearing for March 7th. Is that correct, Autumn? Okay, could I get a motion to
So
schedule a hearing? Public hearing? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I believe that's all we can do for tonight, but it's looking like just a few more little things and then we can, yeah.
I always want to stay after anyway to watch other people, so that gave me a reason to do it. John, can you come and adjourn us? Okay, so the last piece of business we have here is motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor?
Hi.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.